The discovery of the human race. I'm sure many people envisioned that it'd be different than this. Yeah, here we go. Take the X and Y chromosome values and use the Pythagoras theorem, which I also proof in my intellectual property. It gives us this value. Immediately, we get what I showed you yesterday, proof in Planck's constant, which gives it credence, which I call human isospin between the X and Y chromosomes. And let's move on. This is a further analysis from yesterday. The two neutrons come together. 47 times ANSOs equals 47 plus 101, 148. In analysis, we also take the muon and treat it the same way. It gives us the 32. And this is just a further analysis that I'm leading up to really prove why there's human life on Earth. And it also gives us the 101 minus 230, which I show in the first post, the Fibonacci sequence, which shows up in nature, all around us. And of course, fractals. Fractals are beautiful. They're the only things that has finite boundaries but infinite interiors, which is also my conclusion for the universe. Okay, let's further our analysis and let's move on. We take the X in Pythagoras theorem, take the X and Y chromosome, then take the X and the X, and it immediately leads us to our first post, which might lend, some insight to my characteristics of my confidence in the math. I've had this for about 7-8 years. Okay, and let's move on. Since we're talking about the 23, and really the theoretical physicists will tell you the really power play of isospin is in the weak force. We'll take the Z boson and take the human isospin. It gives us the 1204. 1204, that's all just from the first video, times 2, 602 times 2, or 301 times 4. And it shows us isospin right there. Again, now let's do it the other way. Let's go for some symmetry. And it gives us this, the 744 minus 168, which is actually the value of a proton and multiples, using the quarks and multiples of a proton. And 744, take our same math that I proved in previous videos. And remember the 144 plus 89, which is pure Fibonacci, is where times 2 is where E broke and gave the pi family. So we have the 576 equals to 744. There's the 576, 744. So we have some symmetry, and the math is leading us to teach us, because it is the language of the universe and exists outside human experience. And in a few pages, I will show you that Avogadro's number existed before the Earth existed, and I'll explain that. Let's move on. So we have the X chromosomes. If you take that in multiples of 3, that gives us a tie quark, which is the bottom quark. And you take the Y chromosome, it gives you the tie lepton, which is a bigger form of a regular electron. Okay, let's take the Pythagoras theorem again. My conclusion is it is of the tie family. And let's take that, and since it's in multiples of a 3, let's divide it by 3. We get 702. In my first video, I showed you how to divide by 74 to show beta radiation before we moved on, and proved pi slightly, and proved E pretty strongly. And 702 divided 74, excuse me, 74 divided in 52 gives us 702. Same way, 74 into 14, my playoff QCD, quantum chromatic dynamics, which makes up the gluon fields and make up the quarks. And we take the 186, 115, which is when you add up the Fibonacci, and you take the 167 from our Pythagoras theorem. It gives us 19. And just for symmetry, we take the bottom half of the Fibonacci when you add it up, and it gives us the Tie family again. So, Tie family down quark. So, ultimately what we have is we have a Tie lepton times 3 equals 57. Let's say that's appropriate to the Y chromosome. 52 times 3 equals 156 equals X chromosome. And if X and Y are multiples of proton, since we're doing our analysis of multiples of proton, we can take that and divide it by 3. Take a proton, divide it into the, that's my symbol for human. Nordic room. Some people use the Greek letters. I use Nordic. Scandinavia. And this gives us this. And here we go to 903. All that really is 301 times 3. And as you see, we're doing a multiple of 3. That's great evidence when you're working in arithmetic, which is the golden standard of mathematics. Anybody shows you large equations, basically don't know what they're talking about. And which I'll explain, I think, in my second post about the true standard of math. And we take 115 times 3 in our analysis of 345. And that gives us, again, the tie. 2 leptons. And you're asking, well, why is it 2 leptons? I'll show you in a minute. And that gives us the top quark. Let's move over here. And what do we have here? This is just a further analysis of 1474 divided in 14189, 14R, which you can watch my previous post on. And there goes our 219s. That's why the 38 shows up sometimes, that doubling. And you see this doubling also, like in my little play off e to the power of pi. It shows, you know, 2 quantities e to the 230, and I told you I'll explain that later. I got, in my intellectual property, I got hundreds of pages of showing why this is so, which is outside the scope of this small post. So let's take Z boson isospin. Well, the difference between the Z boson and the W boson is 1/15, which leaves credence to this right here. Like I say, I have hundreds of pages of this. And let's take what we call the human isospin and do it. And what do we have? We have some symmetry going on. 38, 26, 38, 26, 19, 38, 7, 19, 26. And as promised, one day I'll show why the 26 doubles. We had to show that in our earlier analysis. Basically, I showed it in pi to give you a heads up. It's a doubling agent. When our spaces and our values doubled in pi, and we took that value to use the E. Let's play off that. Okay, so we take the Z boson, difference between Z boson and W boson, and divide it by human isospin. We get 36. And I thought this is a beautiful way to tie into what we did with E in an earlier post. And that's 36 times ANSUs, or 315. And basically, it's a play. Like I showed, you can take like the square root of 48 and equals 48 times 315. And let's see what we got going here. And as y'all remember, E breaks at 52. Not strong, but if you listen to math, it leads you in the right direction. And ultimately, here it is, my fellow humans. is the discovery of the human race. We have 23 chromosomes. And why there's life on Earth is Avogadro's number. Anybody knows basic calculus? This is a play or underlying play off the power rule. You take your 23, and that's the exact value that I showed you in the first video, as promised. And from yesterday, I forgot to mention in my last video, Planck's constant, the 23 is actually the difference between a neutron and a proton. And nobody knows why. And now you do. I did all this from love on death row. And thank you.